let me start by saying I want to thank my bodyguard, my wife, who's with us this morning, and my staff and I'm going to try to be expedient because I know we're behind the clock on time. So if any of you are late for any of your appointments or showing up for work, just blame the mayor. Everybody else does. Also, my staff at City Hall, who I consider our first responders to the public. Eddie Colbert, Safety Service Director. Tracy Rolfe, who is also our Sergeant of Arms at City Hall, Administrative Assistant, and also our Executive Secretary, Valerie Stevenson. Thank you all for all that you do every single day. They make sure every time I'm leaving I have my wallet, my phone, my keys, and that's a task in and of itself. Yeah, glasses and everything else. Let me say this. It's kind of ironic because the first State of the City speech that I gave was right here in this room in this space in 2012. And a few weeks ago, when I was putting this together, I was reviewing some of my past remarks at this event. The first time in 2012, I talked about getting through some tough, hard financial times, and I quote that I said, "With the cooperation of our city employees, there was no loss of city services, no declaration of fiscal emergencies, no closing down of the parks. We, and I mean all of us, toughed it out," unquote. And then last year at this event, I said, quote, "Thanks to all of our city employees, department heads, sometimes working under difficult circumstances, who kept us going through the last few years during the recent pandemic and made sure that our services to the citizens of our city were not interrupted by the shutdown," unquote. So we've seen some difficult times that were, quite frankly, beyond our control. But I can proudly say that they may have slowed us, but they never stopped us. But I'm not here to relive past glories. I promise you, this is not the Franklin administration's farewell tour. Far from it. I'll give that speech in 4 years, maybe. Today is about what's happening now. Let's begin with the latest on the Golden Triangle. The coalition that's made up of Warren, Howland, the county engineer, and the County Planning Commission applied for and received additional grant funds from the U.S. Economic Development Administration to complete a $3.3 million realignment of the intersections of Page and Dana. This area is extremely significant to our local economy. It's the #1 industrial area outside of Lordstown, and also in our county with over 35 businesses and 2,000 jobs. Besides the funds from the EDA, the city has been granted an additional $98,000 from the Ohio Department of Transportation to assist with the necessary match. The design and the engineering process is already underway, and MS Consultants is helping us on this project. And I also like to give a shout out and thanks to Eastgate Council of Governments for their assistance with these grants. Now, as you all know, one of the most significant moments of my administration and one of the top priorities was the demolition of the old St. Joseph Hospital. This hospital, as you know, has played an important role in the city's history and in the lives of many of our residents. But since its closing, the former hospital complex continued to significantly deteriorate, destabilizing not only the residential neighborhood in which it sits, but the city of Warren as a whole. The importance of this project to the community was made evident when city residents staged a large rally outside on those grounds, and hundreds of people were in attendance, including residents, local churches, businesses, community leaders, and all during that event, chants of "It must come down" could be heard from blocks away. And I made a promise to the people of our city that day to do whatever it took to remove that eyesore. And today that promise is kept. It is down. This was a $5 million cleanup project, and a tremendous amount of effort and lobbying of our state officials were necessary in order to gain access to these funds. Our thanks to Governor Mike DeWine, the Ohio and U.S. EPA, the Ohio Department of Development, and our local partners, the Land Bank, Trumbull Neighborhood Partnership, and locally from Community Development, Lloyd McMasters and Michael Keys. The short-term plan is to restore the 15-acre site as a public green space, with a long-term plan that would solicit public input and possibly envisioning the site being an attractive and viable area for developing new housing along with some ancillary businesses. Last fall, we were honored to have Professor Willoughby and his students, his graduate students, from Kent State's College of Architectural and Environmental Design adopt this site as a class project. Their mission was to come up with design ideas and thoughts for future use of the property. I was so impressed with their work, and you can see some of their ideas on the screen, that we were so impressed that we met with them again last week and to discuss additional projects that they could do some visioning for us. We continue working with the Land Bank on a number of other demolition and mitigation projects that are underway in Warren, including the environmental cleanup of the former gasification plant at South and Main and the demolition of the former city offices at 418 Main. Like St. Joe's, it's not about just eliminating slum and blight, but also preparing these sites for future development. Another thing that these sites all have in common, they all sit alongside the Mahoning River. The development of the river corridor is an extremely important part of the administration's development plan for our city. We just recently completed the feasibility study for the Warren Waterway Trail, a trail connecting the peninsula to Burbank Park. With that study complete, we will now begin working on the next steps of design and funding. Eventually, we will connect Warren with Youngstown. Some other projects in our parks along the river include the Burbank Park Playground, completed in October in partnership with TMP, a new playground and bank shot court at Packard Park to complement our new splash pad. We will begin designing a nature playground utilizing a large fallen tree in Perkins Park, and the Mahoning River Dam, as we've talked about tremendously over the last few years, is scheduled for removal, and it's all paid for. It's going to be removed next year. And that's going to be the catalyst for recreation along our river. And all of this work along the river leads to our downtown. Years ago, with the assistance of RAP, and we have the new director of RAP, Miss Melissa Phillips, here with us, the city had the foresight to obtain the parcels along West Market Street that were part of the old Martin Chevrolet property, knowing that control of this site would be very important to the future development of our city. And the peninsula would now become the focal point for the expansion of our downtown. So at this time, we have taken the first steps of bringing a developer, who you've heard from earlier, on board to begin the process of formulating a plan and design. This is a very exciting prospect for our city, as we do more and more each day to incorporate the river into our strategic plan. A vital downtown, as you all know, is crucial to the heritage, economic health, and the civic pride of our city. A healthy downtown is a symbol of community caring and a high quality of life, factors that can greatly influence corporate location decisions. Our downtown expansion plan will add to an already vibrant downtown. And to add to its beauty, we are proud to showcase our newly revamped historical fountain on Courthouse Square. Just so you know, I have received and submitted a proposal to City Council for a 6.2 additional park improvement master plan throughout our city. And I'm glad I had to add this. Council unanimously approved that just last night. Not only making a major investment in our parks, but also making much needed upgrades to our amphitheater. Believe it or not, the amphitheater is now over 20 years old. Some of the improvements that you will see will include the addition of permanent restroom facilities, completion of a perimeter fence, a boat launch, and a pavilion, as well as needed maintenance. It's important that we keep this valuable asset of our city in the best possible condition. And in addition to the Parks Improvement Plan, I'm also recommending to City Council that we appropriate a $1.5 million to create a revolving loan program for new businesses and the expansion of existing businesses in the city of Warren. These funds will be managed by Valley Economic Development Partners. We have already allocated $1 million in grant funds to be earmarked for businesses to assist them with the exterior improvement program for their signage and exterior improvements. And we're happy to announce that that's going real well, and you'll hear more from that in a few weeks, because I believe that program's coming to an end and we spent all the money. The City of Warren is currently in collaboration with the Port Authority, Eastgate, the County Planning Commission, Howland and Weathersfield Township, and the City of Niles to conduct a county broadband engineering study. The primary focus will be to provide a high-speed broadband service for existing underserved businesses, institutions, and households, as well as future development areas most ripe for catalytic commercial industrial investment. The process for selecting a consultant is underway and should be completed within the next week. And for more collaboration, we are supporting the work of the Port Authority alongside Howland and Warren Townships on the redevelopment of over 1,000 acres on the old Republic Steel site south of the city. Although only a small portion of that site is within the city, Warren does supply water and sewer infrastructure, and we are working with our neighbors to create a joint economic development district for those properties. Speaking of developable sites, we are also in discussion with our friends at the Chamber, and I want to thank the Chamber again for putting on this event, to develop a site readiness plan, not only to identify possible sites for development in the city, but to also create a step-by-step action plan to bring those sites to shovel-ready status. And although it does not always come to mind when speaking of economic development, housing will always and must play a major factor in future development plans for the city. We must take the time and effort to create incentives that will attract developers for the construction of new housing units and also upgrade those units that exist in our city today in the current stock. And now I turn to some really exciting news. I am thrilled to announce that the City of Warren and Warren City School District have officially sold their properties in the West Lawn, Deemer Park, and the former Western Reserve School sites, approximately 86 acres. West Warren Development LLC has purchased these properties and is planning to invest over $10 million in creating Warren West Industrial Park. The company will construct buildings at the site for lease or sale for warehousing and light manufacturing. This is going to be a great boom for our city, as we have very limited manufacturing and industrial space, which has made it difficult for us to attract companies. Groundbreaking will take place this year. This is a significant investment in an area where a majority of the properties have been vacant for over 30 years and prone to dumping of garbage, tires, appliances, and much worse. Not only will this project create jobs and generate taxes for both the city and the schools, but it will be a welcome investment in the city's southwest side, leading to improved roads and infrastructure, as well as increased property values. If I may, I'd like to introduce the gentlemen. I hope they're still here. Yes, they are. And publicly express my appreciation for their investment in our city. They have just recently purchased a building in downtown Warren as well, and they will call that their headquarters. Ladies and gentlemen, in the back of the room, I think they're Mike Martoff, Wally Runestrand, and of course Chuck George. Can you all wave and give them a hand for us, please? This was a huge undertaking, and I must thank the partnerships that made this project happen. There were over 100 parcels requiring title searches, appraisals, deed preparation, and some private ownership of parcels that had to be negotiated. all told a great example of the benefits of working together. So I'm looking forward to reporting on the progress of this development over the next few years. Now, we've talked a lot this morning about the cooperation of our local agencies and other government entities in getting things accomplished, but we also rely heavily on the private sector and their willingness to invest in our community. They see the value in working with us, not just for their own businesses, but in making Warren a better place. People like Chuck, Mike, and Wiley, who I just introduced, Mark Marvin, Christopher Allen, Ted Bloom, Ken Hyderis, Sam Cavelli, Diane Sauer, Anthony Piavalis, and many, many, many more, too numerous to name, but who have all stepped up and have worked behind the scenes on a number of projects important to the growth of our city. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that each project discussed today involves at least one, if not several, departments, and we don't acknowledge their hard work and dedication as often as we should. So I would like to ask and thank all the city employees, ask them to stand and be recognized and accept my thanks and our thanks and appreciation for all that you do. Stand up, please. Thank you all. I'm committed to working with all of our stakeholders because one thing I know, sincerely, I can't do it without your help. And now, back to where we started. The first time I addressed this gathering in 2012, I said this, and I quote, there are two things I really want you to take with you as you leave here about the Franklin administration. One, we will be fiscally responsible, and we have been. Two, Warren will be business friendly, and we are. And today, I'm reaffirming those commitments. Let's keep up the momentum. Based upon our track record, I know we can accomplish a lot over the next 4 years. Thank you for your time this morning.